The Bahamas National Trust commends government on ordering new vessels for the Defense Force. How breathing in toxic fumes can affect your body. A female firefighter makes an impact on the job. We have those stories and more coming up tonight. Good Saturday evening, Bahamas. I'm Christina McNeil, and MB12 Weekend starts right now. For joining us. Days after the Commissioner of Police and Minister of National Security raised concern over the number of dangerous suspects who are electronically monitored while out on bail, the firm responsible for the monitoring services is backing those sentiments. Interim manager at ICS Security Concepts, Gary Gonzalez, says accused offenders placed on electronic monitoring ought to be given stricter restrictions, which may include curfews and inclusion and exclusion zones.
We're calling for increased restrictions on the offenders and moving forward for us to vet persons who would have been sentenced to be on electronic monitoring in advance. What we can say in our experience in this field is that not all persons are fitted to be on electronic monitoring.
Gonzalez says more than 90% of the 460 offenders currently being monitored while out on bail comply with their bail conditions. However, there are a few who are bent on engaging in high-risk behavior. However, if zones are created, offenders can be confined to their homes or restricted from entering specified areas. Gonzalez says that would result in far greater compliance by those wearing the devices. Earlier this week, Commissioner of Police Ellison Greenslade told MB12 he believes that there are some people who are much too dangerous to be put back in the community while they await trial. He says what happens is they either reoffend by murdering people or they themselves are killed. Since then, some members of the public have questioned whether accused offenders charged with murder and attempted murder should even be granted bail.
Ultimately, we live in the communities. You know, and from a personal standpoint, we can't share those same views in specific cases. But the final determination in that fact has to come from the courts. What we can say is that where the court may deem a person to be fitted with electronic monitoring device, we will carry out our mandate as we should, and to ensure that these persons are monitored.
Attorney General Allison Maynard Gibson has, however, suggested that changing the Bail Act won't solve the bail problem. Meanwhile, 2 men were arrested on Monday while in the parking lot at the mall at Marathon. Police say the men, who were wearing electronic monitoring ankle bracelets, placed foil paper on the devices to prevent authorities from pinpointing their location. This is not the first time we've heard of suspects attempting to tamper with their devices with foil. Back in 2012, 30 individuals who were being electronically monitored used foil paper to deactivate their devices. Now Gonzalez says ICS is seeing an increase in the number of suspects attempting to tamper with their devices.
What we are seeing within the program is an increase of offenders using the method of foil to attempt to tamper with their device. This method does not disrupt in whole the functionality of the device. It simply interrupts the GPS satellite signal. However, the device is designed and built where other means of communication still occurs. We're still able to communicate with that device.
Government has indicated it is prepared to introduce legislation that would restrict judges' ability to grant bail. While ICS is confident its contract with the Ministry of National Security will be renewed just over 3 years after the first electronic monitoring agreement was signed. That contract expired in November. However, the agreement with ICS was extended on a month-to-month basis as government's bidding process gets underway. Interim manager at ICS, Gary Gonzalez, says the relationship between ICS and the ministry continues to grow as they balance effective offender management while seeking to meet the ministry's needs.
With all working relationships, that continues to grow and that continues to strengthen. And as our clients and the ministry being the ones who set our mandate, we continue to provide the service as promised, to address any concerns that come from them in a timely fashion, and to ensure that they are continually happy with the service that we provide.
The Ingram administration awarded a contract to ICS and Secure Alert for the electronic monitoring of accused offenders in November 2010. Since that time, Gonzalez says the number of offenders being monitored on the system continues to grow. And a committee will decide the future of that program when the bidding process wraps up near the end of April. National Security Minister Dr. Bernard Nottage says the request for proposals has already gone out, and the committee that will choose the next vendor will soon begin deliberations.
We intend to have the returns from that by the end of next month, at which time it will go before the selecting committee and they will make the decision.
As we mentioned earlier, government's contract with ICS has been extended on a monthly basis. Nottage says the firm continues to meet government's needs as the bidding process continues.
In the meantime, the current providers have been cooperative with the police and with the Ministry of National Security, and they have been providing a service which is helping.
Well, thousands of cellular customers across the country left without service today after a massive outage on the Bahamas telecommunications company network. According to a statement released by BTC, teams are working to restore service after a disruption in landline and mobile network service. This afternoon, prepaid mobile customers remained largely out of service. Postpaid service, meanwhile, was working sporadically. Some postpaid customers on the 2G network were impacted by the outages. Landlines and home internet were in and out or completely down on Cat Island, Exuma, Abaco, Rum Cay, San Salvador, Bimini, and the Berry Islands. BTC apologized for the disruption in service. Well, the Bahamas National Trust commending government on its move to borrow more than $200 million to order 9 new vessels for the Royal Bahamas Defense Force. BNT President Neil McKinney says for too long, poachers have taken advantage of the country's natural resources.
And I'd just like to take the opportunity to commend the government for its wisdom in acquiring, or it being in the process of acquiring, from what I read in the papers, a new set of vessels for the Royal Bahamas Defense Force, because we know how much damage is done to our waters by the poaching from other nations, which is illegal on so many fronts, in the sense that they're trespassing into our waters, they're taking seafood in closed season, they're taking undersized specimens.
The BNT is one of several voices that have called for the prosecution of poachers in Bahamian waters over the years. McKinney cited a recent case where RBDF officers apprehended one vessel of suspected poachers. However, several other vessels were able to avoid capture. The amount of seafood on board that one vessel was quite significant, leading officials to extrapolate the amount of seafood that leaves the Bahamas due to poaching each year.
We as the Bahamas National Trust look forward to working closely, as we have in the past, but also in the future with the RBDF, to do what we can to close the hole on this poaching that goes on in our waters.
Last week, government signed a contract with Dam and Shipyard to acquire 4 Dam and Stand 4207 patrol vessels, 4 Dam and Stand Patrol 3007 vessels, 9 rigid inflatable boats, and 1 Dam and roll-on, roll-off landing craft. The first vessel, Her Majesty Dion Hannah, is scheduled to arrive in the country on June 12th. Well, she's not the first female firefighter in the Royal Bahamas Police Force's 174-year history, but her will to excel has gained her the recognition of many of her male counterparts. 29-year-old Kikia Smith is one of only a handful of female firefighters in the country, and she's quickly rising through the ranks. Jasmine Bonmi has her inspiring story in this report.
It's a predominantly male-dominated world, but for one young female firefighter, she's managed to break through those barriers and become one of the most certified firefighters on the force. Small in stature, but big at ambition and drive, the 29-year-old has become an integral part of the fire services branch. Since joining the force 8 years ago, Smith has taken on multiple roles, including that of firefighter, certified first responder, urban search and rescue technician, and one of only a few highly trained police divers. And she managed to get it all done before the age of 30. She said the decision to join the force nearly a decade ago was done after much research. Before joining the force, Smith had a background in diving, gaining her certification before even becoming an officer.
I was always interested in being in the water, and I found out that the fire services have a scuba diving team. So I made my inquiries and I applied to become a firefighter so I can join the dive team.
And while it has not been easy, Smith said it's a choice she'll never regret. According to Smith, the challenges came early as she had to prove herself in a male-dominated profession. But through it all, she says she loves the job that has exposed her to life-threatening situations.
The best part about being here in the fire department is everything. I love firefighting. I love scuba diving. Like I said earlier, I love the water. I love the excitement and the challenges that both aspects of this job brings.
Smith says as a female officer, she would encourage any woman to join the force.
It was difficult at first, but once I showed them that I have the skills and I have the knowledge to do exactly what they can do, the strength to do exactly what they can do, there isn't any obstacle. If a woman decides she can do it and she applies herself, she'll be able to do it.
Reporting for NB12, I'm Jasmine Bonamy.
Coming up, the real impact trash fires can have on your body.
Distress, increased incidence of asthma and allergic bronchitis. People can get nausea and headaches are very common.
And a little later, the search is on for more positive female role models. Find out more when NB12 Weekend returns.